I'm Nick Fundytus from Royal LePage Performance Realty, and you're watching The Buyer Blueprint. This is a step-by-step guide on how to buy your first home.
All right, let's get this on screen. There, the conditional period. This is the fourth step in the purchase process. And I'm going to start the step off actually by saying that not every purchase of a home or a condominium has this step in it. In some market conditions, particularly a seller's market where there might be multiple buyers offering on the same property, simultaneously, you might put an offer on a property and it'll have no condition. If it gets accepted, then it's considered a firm purchase and you actually don't do this step at all. However, in most cases, particularly for first-time buyers, we write offers with conditions because we want to protect you, the buyer, as you're making an offer on a home. So this is what we're going to talk about here. In this step, you generally have a pretty big team working for you. And the two most common people to get added in here are the yellow line, that's your home inspector there, and a lawyer, which is the blue line there. Just like the negotiation period before this, I could easily do a whole series of videos just on this alone, since there's lots of different things that can happen. For this video, we're going to assume that it's a pretty straightforward purchase, and just the conditions of financing and inspection are on this particular offer. We're also going to look at what a lawyer does. Now, the last thing I'll say here is that it's important to utilize your team during this stage, especially your realtor. We help plan to solve problems before they occur. I like to say, we're trying to set you up for success rather than, deal with problems as they come. And we know how to solve the unexpected things that may occur as well. There's not a whole lot of situations that we're not ready to deal with. In fact, there's not. This is exactly why you have us on your team. So let's get in a little bit deeper here. Let's look at what the home inspector does. So you see we added the lawyer there. But down to the home inspector. Now here's something that's going to vary pretty widely depending on where you're watching this, but in many places a home inspector typically views the property along with the buyers in the conditional period. And here in Ottawa, the inspector's visit usually lasts about 3 hours and costs up to about $550. Most of the time, you're going to get an electronic home inspection report within 24 hours of the inspection that recaps everything that you saw together. Now, it's important to understand the home inspector's role and what they can and cannot do. There's going to be certain types of problems that no matter how good a home inspector is, they're not going to be able to see, either because it's hidden behind walls or hidden in ways that we can't tell. When you interview home inspectors, tell them what kinds of concerns you may have about the house. You can ask, if I'm working with you, can ask me what kind of things we should be looking for, and we'll give you an idea of what home inspectors are and are not going to be able to find. The most important thing is that you choose someone who is highly competent and that you're comfortable that they're going to be able to answer your questions. Now, keep in mind that a home inspector's job is to find problems. This is what you've paid them for. It's going to be up to you to decide how serious each of the problems are to you, and if any of them are worth renegotiating your offer for. And of course, you can consult your home inspector, you can consult me, you can consult whatever stakeholders are in the purchase here. This is how you decide what kind of problems there are and how serious they are when they come up. So just to recap, home inspector costs, at least here in Ottawa, somewhere between $450 to $550. There are plenty of people who'd be happy to take your money above and beyond that, but this is what we see the most. And I find that beyond that price, you're not getting a whole lot more value for your money. Usually it's a 3-hour inspection with your realtor if you're here in Ottawa, plus a report. Most of those reports these days are electronic reports, and they often have a lot of great resources that come with them too. One really nice thing that an inspector can do, same as your realtor can do, is refer you to specific contractors. So if we get into a home and we decide that we have further questions about the roof, or if we have further questions about a furnace, he can connect you with either a good person to deal with furnaces or a good person to give you more information about the roof. So they're just kind of specialists in those areas. Your home inspector is a bit of a generalist because they need to know a lot about a lot of different things, where they may refer somebody in who's really specialized in one area. So let's go on up to the lawyer at the top of the chart here. Now, your lawyer may not even be involved at this part, but you're going to need one, at least here in Ottawa. You need one at some point in the purchase. Actually, just across the river in Quebec, you can do a purchase with a notary. You don't have to have a lawyer. So a lawyer is someone who may or may not be involved in this stage, and if you'd like, you can pay a lawyer to review the offer that's just been accepted to confirm that it represents your needs adequately. If you've purchased a condominium, or a strata as they're called in many places, you need a lawyer at this stage to order and review the status certificate with you. I'll plan another video at some point on the status certificates for the future. In the meantime, if you don't see a link to something below, you can just email me or call me and ask me all your status certificate questions, and I'll do my best to answer you fully. Actually, I'd really appreciate it, because then it will give me an idea of what kind of questions people have. Prices vary quite a bit on the lawyer side, but it's better to be sure that you have a good lawyer who will take the time needed for your questions, rather than just simply choosing the cheapest option. I find time and time again with clients that choose different lawyers, the ones who choose the lawyer based on the cheapest price end up paying about the same as everybody else anyways, because the lawyers who advertise as the cheapest usually charge you all kinds of money for copying and couriering and stamp duties and things like that. So in the end, choose who's good rather than who's inexpensive. That's probably a good rule for life, as it is anyways. Buyers need to use one to purchase, at least here. They can be involved anytime up to the firm purchase, unless you're buying a condominium. And one of their main jobs is to communicate with the seller's lawyer. If you view this at prezi.com, you can actually see the video we've got embedded here. This is a local lawyer that I use who's excellent, and he goes through the lawyer's role in a little bit more detail. But we'll skip him today, and let's go to our overview. So the home inspector, his role is to inspect the home with the buyers, that's you, and the realtor. Optional, you may have a lawyer involved at this point. The realtor's role, so my role is to coordinate all parties and renegotiate. We'll talk about what kinds of problems we can run into. Your job as the buyer to perform your due diligence, just to make sure that any conditions you put in, that you're actually reviewing those conditions. And then your lender's role is to secure firm financing at this stage. So they're just taking the offer that you've written in the negotiation stage, and they're using this time to make sure that they have secured financing. They get you something called a binder, which says, on this house, on these terms, on this closing date, yes, the lender will lend you money. Now, you can still walk away at this point. There can be challenges that come up. This is where we get some of the most interesting challenges in real estate. Email me if you want a good story. I can tell you many good stories about the conditional period. But use your team to deal with any surprises. Usually these things are not surprises to us. We know how to deal with anything that comes up, if you pick good professionals. So a couple things to zoom in on before we go to the next step. If you need estimates or specialists, different types of homes are going to need different kinds of specialists.
Carrie McGee, Park 1, Carrie, Park 1.
This is by no means an exhaustive list, but you might need septic inspections, well inspections. Those are for rural properties. Furnace, foundation, specialty roof.
Erica Stephen, Park 1, Erica, Park 1.
Renovator, and maybe even painters. And then what kinds of problems can we run into? There's actually, if you think about the hundreds, of different kinds of problems that you can have with a house, there are really only 3 families that these fall into. So there's your acceptable problems. If you buy a house built in the 1970s here in Ottawa, an acceptable problem is that it may have aluminum wiring. There's a set way to deal with aluminum wiring, so it's no longer a hazard, and we'll tell you what it is. But if you're looking at homes in that era, expect that you may run into that thing. There's renegotiate. These are usually things that are a surprise to both the buyer and seller that you may come back to and either revisit the price or have somebody fix something, either at your expense or at the seller's expense. Those are the kind of things you negotiate on. Or walk away problems. These are problems that are so serious that they're going to cost a large percentage of the purchase price of the house, so therefore not worth staying in the offer for. Or even if they were fixed, you would still be uncomfortable about it. Typically, these are large systems like foundation and things like that. So that is the end of the negotiation period, the conditional period. And from here, we move on to what's called a firm purchase, assuming that you manage to fulfill all of your conditions. And we'll talk about that in the next video. In the meantime, I've got lots of good resources below if you scroll down on the website here, or you can reach me at nick@nickfundytus.ca, or you can call my cell at 613-400-2000. I'll look forward to fielding all your questions. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching that video. To see the other steps in the series of the Buyer Blueprint, simply go to nickfundytus.ca and look at our resources page.